bad guy. But my problem is when you take that kind of money, the optics of that, the impression people get is that they have a say in the system. And invariably, they do and they will. And so I say yes to this question, but more importantly, yes to politicians leading the way and showing what it means to serve with integrity, and that's how we change the country.
So when I hear the question about people being self-centered and greedy rather than treating one another with respect, there's one person's face that comes to mind. It's Donald Trump. And with him as president, we see direct attacks against immigrants, sexual assault victims, and our environment. And that's why, as district attorney, I will continue to fight for immigrants. And I'll stand up and support and fight for sex assault victims and fight to protect our environment. And that's what I've been doing over the last 20 years. I'm committed to doing it as your district attorney. Nationwide, since Trump took office, we've seen a dramatic increase in hate crimes, including here in Boulder County, which is why I'm launching, in cooperation with the Jewish Community Center, Out Boulder, and immigrant groups, a Bias and Hate Crimes Initiative to raise public awareness and to provide better training for law enforcement and prosecutors to respond to incidents of hate crime. Because I think we're right to be concerned. I think we're right to talk about the lack of respect that people are having for one another in this country and in this county. And as district attorney, I have an opportunity and an obligation to have a direct impact on that. My mission as district attorney is to do justice. And with that comes the responsibility of standing up and fighting for the most vulnerable in our community and to make sure that people respect and honor one another. And what I see coming out of the White House is an immediate and dangerous attack against those things. And as part of my commitment to making sure that the system is just for all, we've launched the first conviction integrity program in the entire state of Colorado. To go back in collaboration with the public defender and the private defense bar to make sure no one's been wrongfully convicted. Of all the moments in my career that have been positive, there's one award that I have on my wall. And it's an award from the Innocence Project. And I have it hanging there so that my staff recognizes that our mission is to do justice. That we have to fight for everybody. And that equal justice is our mandate and our mission. That is what we need to do. And we need to stand up and fight against the White House that is coming against the respect that we should treat for one another. Thank you.
So unfortunately, this didn't start with Trump. I take it all the way back, and we can even take it further back to the Reagan years, where there were specific policy decisions that were made that ended up increasing economic inequality in this country. You look at a graph of economic equality or inequality, and from World War II all the way through the late 1970s, it's pretty much the same, and in the 80s it just skyrockets up, and now here we are. There's so many problems that have been caused by this that of course we can't describe it in just 2 minutes. But these are specific policies that were chosen by the Congress, by the White House at that time, and that have been followed by many subsequent Congresses, many subsequent administrations on the federal level. So this is where we are. It's a difficult position. So to take it back down to really the level that I've been at, which is as a prosecutor and also a state legislator, certain things we can do in the criminal justice system I think can help. Of course, we can't go back and, as a Boulder County district attorney, we can't go back and say, and make congressional legislation. One of these two gentlemen might be able to do that. But what we can do is, what I've tried to do is try to reduce collateral consequences of criminal convictions. We see this all the time where someone comes in through the system, they're convicted of something, and the collateral consequences are even worse, often worse, than what happened in the criminal justice system. And I'll take an immigration example for one. We have someone that comes in through the system, they're accused of, say, a felony, they plead to a felony, and they become automatically deportable at that point in time. Once they're automatically deportable, then who knows what happens, but maybe they have to seek sanctuary, maybe they are deported. Either way, they're not living the same life that they did at all. And it's not necessarily something that should happen. So I think we can do better in the prosecution community to account for those collateral consequences, to reduce those, and to have staff aware of what can happen as a result of their decisions.
Thank you. So we're at our closing statements, and Mark, we're actually going to start with you and come back to raise your hand.
Perfect.
How much time?
2 minutes each. So we're going to be a few minutes late ending up, but not very much.
Well, we started late.
Great. Well, thanks to all of you for attending this forum. And as I think we've all seen, this is an incredibly complex topic. And when we talk about guns, we're talking about a lot more than guns. We're talking about the state of our country. We're talking about the state of our culture. We're talking about the state of our children. And most importantly, I think, we're talking about the state of our politics. You know, as I look at the landscape and I say to myself, you know, we have a country that's been at war for the last 13 years, since 2001, nonstop. My daughter has never seen anything but war. Enough of the war. Enough of creating a hyper-militarized society where people think that. And I'm the only candidate running for Congress as a Democrat who's willing to say it's time to get out of Afghanistan. It's time to stop the wars. The second thing I'll say is we need universal health care. We need single payer. We need improved Medicare for all. And we need that to support all these folks that have not had the benefit of being legislated to, and because they haven't been in the 1% or big corporations, which is generally speaking what our Congress and the administrations have done for the last 50 years. And it's time to turn that upside down and say we're going to legislate for ordinary folks and for their well-being so that some of these problems that we're suffering that directly impact gun violence, we can mitigate those at the root source. Why? How? By having a healthier culture and a healthier society. And finally, it's the piece of money in politics. We will play whack-a-mole forever if we don't get money out of politics. It'll be the NRA, it'll be big pharma, it'll be oil and gas. We must be rid of the original sin of money in politics, and I will never take that money. And that's why I ask for your vote for Congress.
Nick, you're next.
Oh,
Sorry, we're coming back.
no, sorry. Okay. I believe it was yesterday or 2 days ago. There's a great Atlantic article we'll put on the Facebook post when I get back, but it said, it talks about the gun issue. And one of the interesting things it says, and I've heard it before, we have three major issues that really just divide this society. And then number one that divides us politically between Republicans and Democrats is when you talk about guns. More than abortion, more than health care, more than transportation, certainly, which is a very bipartisan issue. Guns. We also have spent the last hour and a half, and thank you for being here, talking about culture. How we continue to just slip down a very dark rabbit hole with no recourse. And the politicians, those who are supposed to be the chosen leaders of our country to debate important issues that reflect society, instead represent nobody but money and party. And we have a 34% approval rating for those U.S. House of Congress members. I do not believe we can fix this issue or most issues by staying in the tribalism that we're currently dealing with. I do not believe that the next Democrat, unless he is ready, and bless your heart, ready to fight the powers that be and ready to speak their mind and actually represent the voters, will be able to do anything. As good of a person as they are, as smart or as intelligent as they are. I don't think a Republican in Buck's district or a Democrat in Polis's district or anybody else with one of those labels that hasn't openly said, I disavow the system and we need to actually get back to real representation. I don't think any of them can do anything. I don't think they have the impact to help us. This is why I'm running as an independent for Congress. And I look forward to talking to you more after this. nickthomasforcongress.com. Thank you for being here.
Well, I also want to extend my thanks to all of you for being here. As I think we've talked about this a little bit, as a prosecutor and legislator, I have made combating gun violence a high priority for the years that I've done both. And for good reason. It's such a difficult issue. It's such an important issue. It affects so many different areas. And I'm proud of what I've been able to do to combat gun violence. In fact, you may know that I'm rated F by the NRA. I'm happy about that. When it comes to the Rocky Mountain gun owners, I may be rated an FU. They don't like me very much. But it's not just about those of us that are in positions to do something at an elected level, either as a prosecutor or a legislator or a city council member or a congressperson. It's about all of you. One of my passions since I have been at the state legislature is getting more people involved in the system, because nothing will change really until more people are involved in a meaningful way. And this forum is part of that. I would encourage you to get involved in supporting the candidate of your choice, whoever that may be and whatever race that may be, doing some real work to get that candidate elected, and then afterwards going to Congress, going to the state legislature, going to other elected offices, calling, emailing. I mean, all these things you hear about, but frankly, not as many people do. We hear from people, but we don't hear from the numbers of people that you might think, at least at the state level. But those that we hear from, I think, have very meaningful and powerful voices. And I just would encourage all of you to make your voice heard on all of these levels, because it ain't going to change unless you all make it change.
I really appreciate the organizers putting this together. I also am grateful to you for coming here on this Sunday afternoon. And I think you and I are here for the same reason. So we had 65 school shootings in 2017. We see too many lives, including kids, being destroyed by gun violence. And we need to do more. And perhaps we also share the belief that our politicians run scared from this issue. It's why after Zachary Parrish was killed, the months rolled by without the legislature taking any action whatsoever. So I look at all parties and I say the one thing they have in common is a shared fear of the Rocky Mountain gun owners and the NRA. Because red flag laws would have been introduced in January, February, March, or April if that wasn't the case. That's why we need leaders with integrity who are going to stand up and fight and speak honestly and directly to these problems. The Douglas County Sheriff, after Deputy Parrish was killed, said that he trains his deputies to approach every single interaction with the idea that the person they're interacting with likely has a firearm. Can you imagine a job like that, where every single person you interact with in your work, you're thinking they might be armed and could kill you? That's how the world is working right now, and that's why this discussion is so important. I'm reminded of Kim Collins, who was an officer in Lakewood, who had the back of her leg blown off by a guy who, after a domestic violence incident, set up a sniper's nest. And visiting Kim at the hospital, and then having to interview the defendant myself at the hospital, knowing that that's the violence that we're allowing to happen. So making sure that we have leaders who are going to stand up and fight for the laws that 87% of Coloradans and everyone in this room believes are appropriate, instead of waiting for the 11th hour of the legislative session and using it as a political football. Now we remain divided as a country and as a state, and we have no red flag law in place. I'd be honored to have your support as district attorney. My cell phone number and email address are on the materials out there, and I'd be happy to share with you the priorities for the future that I've developed for the office. Thank you so much for a great discussion.
As you've seen up front,